Hey Patrick, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Oh, nice to be on. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And then to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your kind of career journey in UX and AI?
Sure. Currently, I'm working at a company called Workday as a director of user experience design. Before that, I was actually a VP of UX and research of a company called Evisort. We were acquired by Workday. So I'm actually celebrating my 30th year on the web,
Wow.
which is pretty amazing. And I get started just, a friend of mine said, "Hey, why don't you join our internet company?" And it was the first political consulting group on the internet. And then it eventually evolved to enterprise software.
Nice. That's quite the journey. And then you're also doing a lot with AI these days. I know you've started a Slack group that's like blowing up with regards to like UX and AI. But yeah, tell us about that too.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things going on. I do have a Slack group called AI for UX, and it's really related to how we use AI in the user experience process. It was formed in support of a book that I wrote called GPT Prompt Guides. You can go there, UX GPT. Sales are doing really, really well. It's listed as number one under user experience and usability on Amazon for Kindle and a little bit sometimes for paperback. It's been awesome watching everybody collaborate there, and we're all learning together. And
Yeah.
so it's been a wonderful experience starting the Slack group and seeing it grow so fast.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Get a place for people who are curious about it or using it to share articles and learnings. Well, let's up and talk about AI, right? Like, I'm wondering your opinion on, in the product process, where is it applicable and where is it overhyped or not there yet?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. We've been using AI in some form, generative AI in some form, for the design and product development process for quite a long time. Since going back all the way to December of 2022. There's a presentation I did on ADP list around this back in April of 2023. And a lot of the way I perceive AI, I'm not always looking for the right answer. I'm looking for a starting point. It's really good at the start of the process, and it's really good at the end of the process when you're finishing. Kind of the middle areas is where it kind of fumbles a little bit. And so we use it a lot for competitive analysis, analogous inspiration, for writing up content, for coming up a bunch of user stories. It's really, really good at coming up with initial specifications that you can work with. Editing and problem statements, it's really good at. The areas where I see where designers are protected is like wireframing. It's great at doing prototyping and coming up with really quick ideas, and you can show people, hey, this is where we want to go. But actually working with existing code or existing context, it actually struggles quite a bit. And so, I wrote an article a while back. I wasn't too worried about my career when Figma released all those AI
Yeah.
features. They're still working on them, and that they're great, but we still have a long way to go as a domain or whatever for that to be a fear.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And do you think that's the same for product management or engineering, just outside of UX?
I actually think that some of the other competencies are a little bit more at risk of their jobs changing quite a bit, and it's more of a curation model. For example, engineering is seeing significant increases in productivity, anywhere between 20 and 30% using tools like Microsoft Copilot. And a lot of it is because it's written language, which is something that the LLMs actually excel at. And so I see those as areas where there's going to be a lot more change in the way they do their jobs. Some of the areas of product management, there's going to be a lot of change, but some of them around managing stakeholders and all the soft skills stuff, I don't feel like that's at risk at all. We still need to have people that know how to handle challenging situations and make decisions and make judgment calls, and AI isn't there yet for that.
And one more subset, what about research? Like, because we've seen some pretty cool early stage tools doing a lot of like
Mhm.
almost doing user interviews with real users, but not quite there yet.
No, that's another actually really good question. And I'm of the opinion that you still have to talk to users. And so this is the way that we've been doing the Gen AI approach of doing it for research. What we do is we ask a bunch of questions, we feed a bunch of data to see what questions that we should ask. We actually ask, hey, give me some synthetic answers from users of these personas, and then we get an answer. But then we go talk to users. And so what it
Yeah.
does is, instead of spending our time arguing about what questions we ask, we get a really quick baseline, we test it on real users, or we test it on synthetic users, and then we go to real users to make sure that the answers are right. And one of the things that we've noticed is that it misses a lot of the nuance,
Oh
the
yeah.
synthetic users. And so at the end of the day, you still have to talk to real users, but you get much quicker insights out of talking to them.
Smart. So once again, just kind of doing that draft work with regards to research and then refining it. And then yeah, you can't skip talking to real
Yeah.
users.
And when talking to a lot of researchers about it, I've been urging them to be more mixed methods, mix qualitative and quantitative. And what I mean by quantitative is not, hey, interpreting a survey study. What I mean by quantitative is going in a BI tool and understanding usage data, and it's sketching what the journey is and sketching what to measure so we know what the outcomes are. And that's what I mean by mixed methods. And that's
Mhm.
something that I think that the research community is going to transform quite a bit to meet that, because the amount of data that we keep collecting on usage patterns.
Yeah. Cool. Let's switch gears to like the lanes, if you will, between product engineering and design, which, has historically been called the three-legged stool. What do you see happening? Is there a shift there?
I actually see quite a shift in a lot of companies. And for example, Clairvaux, who's been, I'm going to name drop a little bit, but
Oh, no, that's cool.
she's a CPO over at LaunchDarkly, and she came up with that tool called Chat PRD. She did a presentation on one of Lenny's conferences that was along the lines of product management is dead. And I don't necessarily think it's dead, but what I do think is the notion of roles and lanes and blurring the lines is going to change quite a bit. And so you see designers producing prototypes and producing PRDs, and you see engineers getting in there and writing front end code because it's so much faster now. And then you see, product managers producing prototypes. And so we have to be a lot more flexible on the roles, because of all these tools that we have, we can now help each other out and learn together on how to collaborate. It looks a lot like when I got on the internet, we were still learning what our roles were. I would advise people not to worry about it. And I would advise them to focus how they can add value by using their diverse skill sets to kind of augment their skills in other areas.
For sure. Yeah, switching back to AI, I've heard some pretty wild takes just scrolling LinkedIn, like Figma's dead because of these new AI tools and things like that. I'm wondering how worried should incumbent players be? I feel like they would just buy the AI tool with five people on the team if they're actually worried about it. Or like if there is truly some AI tools out there that you're like, this is the future.
Actually, I'm going to go a little bit different direction with this answer, and it's kind of
Sure.
interesting. So I'm a little bit of a bowling geek, and I wanted to buy a new bowling ball. And my brother owns a bowling pro shop. And the way that they judge bowling equipment, it's a mix between textual information about the hook profiles of bowling equipment, and they show how the bowling equipment would appear on certain patterns. And one of the things about AI right now is that it does a pretty good job of interpreting text, but it doesn't do a great job of interpreting images, and there's no way to connect them together. So I went to 5 AI assistants and said, here's the bowling equipment. I want to buy a new bowling ball. What's the profiles and which one, hooks the way that I want it to. I got 5 different answers.
Yeah.
The reality is that the LLMs are large language models and images aren't there yet. And so I don't believe wireframing tools will go away anytime soon because of the visual nature of them and the context they have to have. For example, I had that portfolio evaluation tool that I have, UXGPT portfolio evaluation, and I get the request every once in a while along the lines of, why doesn't it actually judge my images? And the reality is it's not going to be able to anytime soon, because judgment is a very human kind of value, right? And so I think we're pretty far off from it really being able to do that.
Yeah, no, I love that answer. I'm wondering what advice you have for new designers entering the field today.
The advice they have new designers entering the field today is they have to embrace the AI tools. And the way that I think about it is you have to use AI to learn how to design for AI. And so basically you learn where the guardrails are. One of my friends who's really into the content space, he thought I was, the antichrist by doing a lot of this open AI work. And then I explained to him, how legal was and how it was a pretty protected space and there wasn't really copyright. and how contracts were really the right use case for this for interpretation. And then he got it. And so there are a lot of areas of AI that are a little bit dangerous, like music, for example. But there are other areas where we can put it to use safely, responsibly, and respect content creators and still make use of it in a good way. And the designers have to learn where those guardrails are, where those lines are. And so you have to embrace it by reading the books and reading the articles and not worry about a right answer, but worry about the journey and learning.
I agree. Got to embrace it and test it out. Patrick, thank you so much for joining the show today. I'm wondering where folks can go to join the UX for AI for UX or UX for AI group, and then also find your book.
So if you go to gptpromptguides.com, it has links for both. You can join the Slack group from the website, and it'll bring you in for through an invite. And then you can also buy the book both as a paperback on Amazon, as a Kindle on Amazon, or you can also buy it digital on Gumroad right from the website.
Nice. Love it. Well, thanks again for joining.
Thank you.